Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena,
I'm Llama.
and today we're talking about mostly 11th Ed 40K, but Warhammer stuff in general.
Yeah.
We've got basically today is or this weekend is the release of 11th editions. So they're getting into people's hands. We're seeing stores and whatever getting their demo copies all assembled and painted up, getting ready for the big launch. Because the launch of the edition doesn't coincide with the starter box releasing per se, right? It's
Right.
it's still kind of like, get your box early before the new edition starts, and they drop all the big info of like, oh, here's what an army does, and here's how list construction works, and here's all this stuff. This is sort of like that preliminary period between editions where like you've got some of the new stuff, but we're still using the old rules for now. You're using the old battle tomes, but you're using some of the new wording on the new core rules, that kind of stuff. So it's a little messy.
Yeah.
What do you think of the new stuff? You got to see some of it in person.
Yeah.
What do you think of the new?
Yeah. So yesterday was the official pre-order day, but I went into a Warhammer store and they had a copy open. Nothing on the shelf for sale, but they had a copy open. Got to see the models look great. I mean, like anything recently, I think the push fit stuff, when people whine about that, they aren't like us who kind of got used to it with Underworlds. And so we've seen that they can make the detail on these every bit as good as with like a multi-part kit. Yeah, you're locked into kind of like one pose or very few variations, like you can swap out a head or something. But the models look great. I think we talked some about this last week, but one of my favorite things they nailed with scale was the different types of orcs. I got to see that really where it's like, well, an orc boy is bulkier than a human and with bad posture. And then your bosses are like your Space Marine size orcs. And then your war boss is enormous. Like I got to see that one that comes in the starter box in person. He is considerably larger than the captain. Like he's the 2D pictures don't do him justice. He's wide at the shoulders and yeah. So the models look great. The sprues are jam packed. The box itself comes with a lot of paper. Also, you get a couple of decks of cards. You get the Combat Patrol Companion. You get the core rule book, which now we learn are all going to be sold separately right away.
Yeah.
You get the terrain area set.
There was another non-starter box war boss coming out too, right?
Yep.
Was there a standalone one that they showed off?
That was one that was accidentally leaked early, allegedly, accidentally, and it's going to be a part of the standalone orc release. Is going to be this war boss on foot.
So do you think the war boss that comes in the box is unique to the box, and there'll be a separate, different, sculpt that is released solo?
I think that might be how they do it, because I mean it gives people more war bosses for one. Like it's just
also
like
an incentive to get that starter box.
It's an incentive to get the starter boxes, and it's like with Space Marines. Like people joke how many lieutenants and captains and stuff there are, but at the same time, now no two people really have the same, because you can bit swap them and kit bash them however you want. And with the orcs now, they're kind of getting that treatment right now. They just got a mega armor orc boss last edition. They got the Beast Snagger war boss the edition before that. And now, or no, same edition. And then now we're getting this one in the starter box and another one on foot. So they're going to have, and then plus we have the boss that's a step down from. So I think they're going to have a whole lot of different toys to play with. And it's possible based on how the sprues are cut in Armageddon, and this was the case in Leviathan, they don't have an elegant way to release that war boss on his own without including some other model. And so they might have had plans to just make a separate standalone one. Because we were left with that with the Tyranids, where now you have to buy like the Neuro Tyrant and something else together with the Screamer Killer or something like that.
It was
Psychophage.
Psychophage, I believe. Yeah. A little awkward. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like I'm all for like releasing exclusive stuff as part of a starter box, and then having a non-exclusive version. And like I think it's fun. It incentivizes everyone to get the thing, because there's this there's the FOMO, right? Like I want every version of the thing. I don't want to miss out on one. There was like a unique Overlord in one of those starter boxes or Necrons. You can only get there for a while, and I don't think you can get him outside of it. That kind of stuff. So, I get that, but it does feel bad when you miss out, or like you end up with more than one of this exclusive. Then, like, what do you do with it? Yeah, because I often get more than one of the starter boxes too. And I don't know. It's definitely interesting. Like you said, the push fit models that come in the starter box, while they are they're push fit, right? And people kind of poo-poo on that a little bit. But you don't need to get 5 versions of the same push fit models. It's mostly a way to get a starter amount, a single set of the updated ones first. Easy to put together, quick to assemble. And then they don't sell the push fit later. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like, oh, well, we're only selling the push fit kit, and so every single 10-man squad you get is going to look exactly the same. It's like, no, the starter box has the push fit, but then later down the line they release a standalone kit that has lots of extra options and posability and extra harder to assemble models like you wanted. You know what I mean? Like,
they did that. It's just, they did that with Terminators. They did it with the Termagants. They did where it's, you get a version. They did it with Blade Guard Vets a couple editions ago. You get a version of them later that, for some of the infantry anyway, that have options that let you. But at first, it's just about getting the new ones into people's hands, like you said, so people can play quick and paint quick and whatever. I have no problems with it. And again, the models look good. And I like it when I then buy the standalone kit later, and now those 2 units look slightly different. So, yeah. No real issue for me there. I think it's a great set.
Agreed.
People can gripe about the price. It's cheaper than what the Saturnine box was for Horus Heresy, but it's more expensive than what Leviathan was.
But again, it's everything is going up. Everything has gone up.
Yep.
Right. Like, relatively, I think. Well, it feels bad to pay. Was it $295 or whatever? A lot of places have that for cheaper because they sell slightly under MSRP, and then the fact that, like, could have been worse. Like, it could have been higher than that. And it is a very complete box with a rule book that's usually $65 on its own, plus like the terrain cutouts and all the chapter approved cards. Like, it comes with a lot of stuff, right? And then it's still, on top of that, even a discount if you're to buy all that stuff separately.
Oh yeah.
Again, push fits and whatever, but yes, it's a big investment. The hobby's expensive. It is kind of a shame that it feels like, as we get older, it doesn't get relatively cheaper, even though, like, we're doing better. Like, why is it easier to afford the world?
But yeah, I think Saturnine was like $330 or something like that, or $315. That was even more expensive, and I don't think it came with all this stuff in terms of
what was it, like 15 models or something? Like, it was not a lot.
It was all of the weird pattern Terminators and
oh, I guess it had the Marines in it too, didn't it? It had a set of Marines. Yeah, but like, I mean, I consider the Saturnine Terminators, the Saturnine Dreadnought, the Saturnine Praetor. I think that was only 7-8 models that were Saturnine, right? Like, it wasn't that many.
It wasn't a lot. It was pretty expensive.
And then, it was pretty pricey. So, yeah, but no, I'm not upset about the price, honestly. Like, it still feels worth it. It's not, maybe not affordable to get more than one copy of the set now.
Right.
Like, I had gotten multiple copies of the previous ones, and this one might be a little bit above that price point, but I wasn't crazy about this one anyway. So
I usually found that you end up the luckier one, I think, when you are a collector or player of whatever Xenos faction is in it, because when it is just Marines and Chaos or whatever, it's like, yeah, a lot of people are going to buy that. But it was easy for me, for example, as a Tyranids player, when Leviathan came out, to find people who were trying to get rid of the Tyranid half because they were Marine players. And so that was wonderful. Then I benefited from getting a whole bunch of it for inexpensive. And I think Orc players,
I think Necron players were the same way.
Yeah, I think Orc players will now be able to kind of, it's like, you find those Marine guys that want it and you'll get more Orcs for cheap.
Hey, you want a shitload of boys? Like, here you go. And there's enough variation in those models for sure that, like, unless you're really studying and really looking, like, you can make them pretty unique compared to
And
Yeah.
even within the sprues, some of them have different heads or a different like right hand. And a part of that was like, because orcs now can do slugga, choppa, or shoota, but it's all the same boy now. There's not this separation of
Right.
shoota boys, chop, slugga boys, or whatever.
Which I don't think that's broken or anything, right?
Nope.
Like
it's like a Marine having a bolter, bolt pistol, chainsword.
Yeah.
Like,
which they don't, but I wish they would.
But some used to.
Yeah.
I remember when only, by the way, that was for a time in 5th edition. I think it was only Grey Hunters for Space Wolves could use a bolter, bolt pistol, chainsword, and they were 1 point cheaper than a standard Marine from any other chapter for some reason.
Yeah, with that loadout.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, cool, you're better, but you are cheaper.
And they had counterattack, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny. But yeah, so new editions coming out. We've got the core of the core rules. There, I mean, there's a lot more to the core rules than they showed us with that little pamphlet. I mean, there's call-outs of things that aren't listed in that PDF.
Right.
So there are the rule set will be more deep than what we're seeing, but that is out, and generally, I think it was pretty good. It kind of clarifies and cleans up some stuff. Big meaningful changes, things like how indirect fire works, how like snap shooting works with Overwatch and that kind of stuff. So very clean wording on a lot of it now. I'd like to see maybe some more interactions with some of those rules, because like we had talked about with universal special rules before, USRs are there so that you can reference them in multiple different ways. But it's a common ruling, common understanding. No matter which way you're using it, it all behaves the same way. Well, we've got things like what is it, hip firing, or whatever they call it now, snap firing, whatever snap shooting is. Your Overwatch shooting where you're only hitting on unmodified sixes. I think it's the only thing that forces you to shoot that way. You know what I mean? Like, there should be other things that cause you to snap fire, and then you'd be like, okay, well, this is snap fire. I know exactly what that is already.
Right.
Only hitting on my 5/6s, no rerolls to hit, all the restrictions there. But as far as I know, like, that's the only thing that actually calls it out. So it's kind of pointless having that as a defined universal special rule, because it's like, no, this is just a specific rule. It's not a universal one.
Yeah, there's just no rule. It's like,
yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why they need another keyword to define a keyword. So we'll see if that gets fleshed out.
Yeah,
because we talked about even where, like, with the last edition of Age of Sigmar and the about to rotate out edition of 40K, they started off with these USRs and clean rules descriptions, and then both editions of those games went in very different design directions partway through. And yet they didn't take more advantage of those USRs. They didn't even flesh them out at all. And then other rules became far more complicated. I will say with 40K this edition, they are starting to do some of that, right? Like they've been defining way more weapon rules, for example, as weapon rule X, right? Where X is a variable number that you can plug that in, instead of it being kind of a fake version of that, right? Like, there were other special rules that were like, oh, this gives you extra attacks if X, but it's never more than just one. So it's like, why are you calling out one in there? Like the fact that they're doing the rapid fire 6 as a thing, doing things like blast 2, right, is now a thing. Instead of just being blast, where you get one extra shot per 5 guys, now it's like, okay, you get 2 extra shots per 5 guys, or 3 or 5, or whatever the number is. There's some scalability and some alternate, more powerful versions of the same rule that are allowed now in your universal rules. I love that. I think that's very good. That's degrees
a good way
of
to
the
do
rules is also a good way to scale up weapons. You can have sustained hits 1 or whatever, devastating wounds, whatever, and then you go to a bigger weapon that's designed for anti-tank, anti-monster, and you have it do, maybe it won't get as many shots, maybe it doesn't do anything different to infantry, but when it hits this thing, now it's insert new rule with different number. Yeah, no, I hope they do that. I think a lot of other game systems already do.
Yeah. So yeah, scalability, that kind of stuff is very positive. Like I said, the rules just seem way more clean, a lot more well defined, no nonsense rule descriptions. Hopefully to avoid more confusion. They did try to define some things that I think added more confusion, things like line of sight and partial unit line of sight, full, basically how they define the examples of what cover is still kind of confusing to some people. Because I've still seen a lot of questions already about that kind of stuff, and it's
right.
Yeah, no matter how succinctly and how cleanly you write something, there's always going to be a percentage of people who are still confused by it. Like part of it is we've been playing and we've known the rules for a long time, and so we kind of know how it's supposed to function, how it feels, and so like, oh yeah, we felt this before in game. We know how this works. But when you sit down and you look at the rules specifically, it's hard to say like, well, this is exactly how this works, and there's why to a new player. And they're like, but what about this line of sight right here? It's like, yeah, don't worry about that. It's just this is how it is. You know what I mean? And it's true. We're not bullshitting, but it's just like, I don't know. It's there's always going to be confusion, always going to be questionings, always going to be judge rulings about things that probably shouldn't need them. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what's next after the edition starts. Right, like I think the groundwork, the framework for new stuff, new things that shake up the game are kind of laid, and I want to see how it actually shakes up the game. How does list building work? How does these new detachment rules work? How do leaders? How are leaders going to make the units feel? That kind of thing.
Yeah, when it was, I suppose as far as a pre-order weekend sequence goes, that was a little disappointing when it was like, oh, the official pre-order on Saturday. Sunday is the announcement of pre-ordering the stuff separately. So I wouldn't be surprised if Monday's reveal is nothing new. But there's a rumor, though, that it might be something for Horus Heresy revealed on Monday.
Tuck that in there right in the middle just to break things up.
Yep. Hey, look, another Forgeable kit being ported to plastic.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is something coming up in July, and that is the big summer Warhammer preview event. They did one last year. They're doing it this year. It's supposed to be on July 17th.
Okay.
So it's the Warhammer Open that's in Tacoma, I think, is the one where they're going to do it. But it's specifically called, and they said it was going to be the Big Fat or Big Fatty Summer Preview or something like that. So people wondered what it's going to be about. Is it going to be stuff with the monster season for Age of Sigmar, like featuring some big new monster kits, or at least the rules for it? We don't
really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, so when we're thinking about rumors for Age of Sigmar that could tie into a monster season, right? I think we're going back to Gur, right? Their own beasts,
something like that.
So like, is that where the rage mechanic comes from, or was it?
Right.
It wasn't the realm of fire, right? Fire rage. It was bestial rage. Oh man, I thought we were in Gyron before, which was life. We're not going to Axie, are we?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Anyway, but it's a rage mechanic, right? And it's going to be more centered around monsters and rampages and stuff like that are introduced in those seasonal rules. The armies that could benefit from having monsters, I mean, every army, let's just throw out there, but we're Seraphim, right? Lots of big dinosaurs and monsters. Sons of Behemoth, they're all big monsters. Ogres,
Ogre Maw tribes, yep.
Big monsters, and ogres themselves are monstrous infantry. They ride monsters, and then potentially, I mean, we heard rumors about dwarfs getting updated, including things like new magma droths and golems, things like that.
Right.
Like big monsters. I don't know. I could see it. I could see the timing of these four, last armies getting updates could be very monster themed. And then, throwing some Stormcast monsters in there for good measure. New dragons or something. We did have I do want to bring this up too, is because I don't think a lot of people are thinking about it. But we had a teaser. What are the teasers called? The Tuesday ones. Rumor Engine. There you go.
Yeah.
The latest Rumor Engine was a very kind of monstrous, scaly dragon foot of some kind, right?
Just grabbing onto a,
an obsidian, outcropping or something, like a stone.
Admittedly, with the Rumor Engine, scale is always difficult because the way they show us those now. They've always done it where it's color neutral, black and white, and then they, of course, Photoshop anything in and around it out, so we don't have context. And then sometimes they're so zoomed in on a detail, it's just like, well, this is nothing. We don't know what this means. But occasionally, we can tell and at least compare it to something else. Like when Abraxia was first teased in a Rumor Engine, all they gave us was like the nose of the lizard that she rides. It reminded you a little bit of Varangard. And so you just said some sort of new Varangard thing. And it was like, and it took a while before it paid off, but then it was like, well, it kind of was, because she was a champion among them and is Archeon's right hand and rides on a beast like theirs, just bigger. And so I think it is a monster-ish thing. I don't think this is a small bird or whatever they're showing us,
Right. Well, the size of the scales, the size of the highlights and stuff that you can see, like, it makes me think bigger. But,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But thinking about like cross-referencing that, right, with different rumors we've gotten, we do have rumors of Seraphim, right? We got rumors of dwarfs. It could be Magma Drophy. It could be giant lizardy. But I think what people have forgotten too is that the old world exists, and that
everyone has forgotten it because it's terrible.
The Warriors of Chaos from the old world had their own big lizards, big dragons, chaos dragons, things like that. I thought that I remember from a while back there was rumors of a new mammoth for like the Norskins,
right?
And then there was a new chaos dragon with potentially either a rider or not ride, like a chaos lord riding a chaos dragon. That was rumored, and like this kind of looks like it could be a floating, flying draconic monster grabbing onto something as it's landing or taking off. And while I would hope that they would not put forth the effort there into old world for big cool new models like that and put them into Age of Sigmar, the game that is moving forward, right? There is that risk that like this is an old world model, right? That's like, hey, those manticores and war shrines and all those big things that were sent back to the old world from Age of Sigmar, they got all those now. But guess what? We're also going to give them a dragon and a mammoth.
Brand new ones, right?
Why?
Well, consider this. Last year's Big Summer Preview did a couple of things. Released Kill Team Tomb World, which had brand new Deathwatch Marines, Necron terrain, new Necron named Cryptek guy. I don't remember his name.
Was he a Psychomancer?
Something like that. But they also gave us 5 first founding Space Marine characters, including Ethan Sean, who ended up a massive hit. They gave us the announcement of the Scouring, which is the first novels post Horus Heresy. They gave us the Mark II Marines with jump packs. They gave us a plastic bunch of stuff for Legions Imperialis, but that's whatever. They did the Warhammer Underworld Spitewood. They also announced and showed off the Hellsmiths of Hashut at that event.
Right.
So, I mean, and then I think they did 2 book and a model announcements, Flesh Eater Courts and Night Haunt. So like that preview event was pretty big. And so if it's, and there were Lich Priest and Tomb Princes for Tomb Kings that were new models.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I forgot about those.
An update to the Leagues of Votan was also during that. So like that was a huge event. And if it's anything like that, and I think that's smart that you pick the middle of the year, that's sort of a dog days as far as interesting moments, like do a big preview event. I think we'll get a little bit of everything. Maybe something big and exciting for Old World. I guess they got to have something, but General's Handbook might be out by then.
Yeah.
And people have talked about how that last year of AOS 4 is going to have a bunch of end of edition campaigns like 40K did. So we might start seeing what that looks like, including new models.
Yeah.
That wrap around the season.
Yeah, I mean, like that's something I'm definitely very much looking forward to. We love our preview events. We really do. It's like it's such a highlight for like our year. Like we kind of plan around it. We take days off for it, you know.
Yep.
Like
I've done that where it's like we would like
Yeah.
take off work just to watch it live, or I'd get up at midnight to watch the England one. Yeah. Yep. Well, and we have some rumors of things that they might just be rumors. It might be like Plastic Thunderhawk style rumors, stuff that people wish listed. Someone believed it and it never died. But, you know, it could be we get payoffs of things like the Ascended Korgus Cole we keep hearing about.
Right.
Some sort of monster updated kit for Slaves to Darkness / Dark Oath. They might announce the Ogre Maw tribes and show off what they look like. If it's a preview event, a big preview event, anything like what last year's big summer preview event was, and if the big fat, the word that they chose there to describe it,
big fat, yeah,
you know,
the ogres, yeah.
So it might even be a double. It might even be the old ogres are going back to Old World, and they'll, who knows, grease us and everything, and then Ogre Maw tribes for Age of Sigmar gets a whole new lineup of models. I don't know. I don't know if they do the same. I don't know if they do that same army in two.
Why did they say fat though?
Right.
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. It's cheeky.
Because they like doing that. They like being cheeky. They like when the people guess, except in their Q&A sessions, and then they're clever about swerving. So I don't know. It could be that's what we'll see at that event for Age of Sigmar, but. I mean, we've seen some information about the General's Handbook, like you said, where they talked about the season that we're going to have, monsters and monster hunters-ish. And so there's already been some people talking about, with the rage mechanic we've seen, what this will do for certain units, which ones become better, because their points will change with General's Handbook. But if we looked at these units as they are now, how will these types of rules benefit them? And it was even characters that don't see a lot of play currently. I think like Yndrasta, the spear wielding angel, like all of a sudden she's got these like 4 damage stabs or something if she does it right. And it was like all of a sudden she's got one of the best attack profiles where it's like 6 swings at 2/2 -2/3 or whatever. And then it's like now if she does this right, she could get extra attacks and be at damage 4 or something. So I don't know. This might be a whole new way to make unplayed units played.
Yeah, it also sounded like they were planning on doing a Scourge of Gyron. So obviously different season, different, you know, rules for their kind of seasonal alternate war scrolls, right? They did kind of allude that the Scourge of Gyron might be going the way of the new General's Handbook, as in like, hey, we're not actually getting rid of some of these profiles, or we're going to be doing the profiles again for the new season in some way. Because people seem to really like the way that worked out, giving alternate versions of units that had their own point costs and their own, you know, different archetypes, right? Different ways to play.
It's
and again, it's weird.
I'm glad they don't do it with every unit. That would be super annoying. But yeah, giving like 2 or 3 units per army, these alternate ways to do it. Yeah, their little verbiage was again a little nuanced. It was keep your eyes on Warcom for more news about when it will be available for pre-order, that being the General's Handbook. And we might just see the Scourge of Gyron move to Akshi in the coming weeks. So we had hoped for that. If that's what it means, we had hoped that some of these rules would just become permanent, because some of those war scrolls were just market improvements on the units. Or like in the case of Rodigus, one could argue both versions of him are equally good. So it depends on what you expect to go against, kind of.
Right.
You play 2 very different feeling versions of him. Same wound count, same rough points and whatever, but like what he's better at changes. And so I don't know if there were other units for armies you play that were like that. where they were too good for.
Abraxia. We talked
Okay.
about her earlier. The
Yeah.
Scourge of Gaia and Abraxia was more selfish than being like a synergy piece with the Varangard,
Mhm.
right? Because the old Abraxia, all you could do was like, oh, well, she unlocks Varangard's fight twice without fighting last ability. That's all she really did.
Yep.
Whereas the new one's like, hey, this one doesn't do that anymore, but she's +1 damage on all of her attacks. She's got +2 extra attacks. Her mountain has +2 extra attacks and +1 damage. And she's got more health and more mobility. And she's got a rampage mechanic that lets her charge after she charges. It's like, whoa, she's way better.
Yeah, now
It was
she's
that
just
kind
a
of thing.
solo beat stick. Yeah.
Right. So you didn't have to play her in, Swords of the Everchosen and play a 12 model list or whatever. Like you could actually bring her just as is.
Yep.
So that was good. I liked that kind of a change. Or even when it just comes to basic like battle line troops having 2 different versions. Like there's a kind of a castery version of the Carrick Acolytes in the book, but then here's like a melee version of the Carrick Acolytes. Like if you don't want to go, spell bolts and shooting, like you can have an actual melee one here. That's great. Like
I did find it interesting that they showed that releasing alongside this General's Handbook are 6 round templates and it's objective markers. And it's funny because in 40K, they're completely going away from those and doing the terrain area. Do you think in the next edition of Age of Sigmar, they'll go away from the circles? And
they could, like we've said before, the terrain matters a lot less in Age of Sigmar.
It doesn't take up as much of the board. For sure.
Yeah, and maybe they would change with that. Maybe they change that up. I think it'd be neat if some battles were fought on very densely packed, cityscape, ruined cities, whatever.
Hammer Hall or something like that, right?
But generally you've got your fights are taken out, are taking place out in the field, right? Lots of woods, lots of wilds, less city fighting. And so it makes more sense for a fantasy setting to have a few ruins, or a low wall here or there, and then like maybe a large building that blocks line of sight.
Even if there's a village, even a village would bring a little bit more dense terrain instead of just like standalone ones, So I don't know. Maybe they'll keep the circles. Maybe they won't. They made these ones look really nice. I'll just say that they have specific.
Well, there was the 6 templates that came with the last what do you call it, spearhead box was kind of like that. It was kind of these felt templates, but it was important for that season of spearhead because the objectives that you could draw and had to accomplish they would call out which specific objectives you had to go get. And so these templates having like very specific
symbol on
numberings on them. Yeah, symbols on them, made it so that you had to go get specific things. And so there was 4 different objectives, and then 2 of them had a copy, basically that you could have them in pairs. And so some of the objectives might say, oh, objective 2, which is one of the pairs, you have to occupy both objectives. Whereas, objective 1 and 4, maybe they were just singles and they didn't have something like that. It definitely made it interesting. I could see it going more that way, but I could see it going, terrain control as well. Like, I don't know.
I don't know if they'll ever make the Age of Sigmar table dense with terrain. And the only reason I say this is because they just went through like 2 editions of making faction specific terrain that you have to place in a very specific way that doesn't touch other stuff. And unless they're going to scrap that, I feel like they're still going to keep the board kind of sparse. So I don't know, maybe the circles are still the best way to go.
Maybe they'll change it up. Maybe they'll change and say, hey, if you've got faction terrain now replaces a piece of terrain on your half of the board according to its categorization, right? Like your death nexus for whatever it's called, the obelisk for Bone Reapers is a large piece of terrain. The large piece of terrain in your deployment zone for this map is replaced by that. And so you don't have as much restrictions by like, well, where can my terrain go? It's more like, hey, we've got set positions already. You can occupy, you can control that objective piece, but this was a faction terrain. Maybe it's not destroyable anymore. Maybe but it is an objective now. I don't know.
Right.
I could see them doing all kinds of stuff. That would make it a little more fair, little more fair for people who have big terrain pieces and you know, easier for them to actually deploy it in a
Yeah.
meaningful place.
I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what this Warlord edition is, because it says it includes a game tracker board, tokens for use of the tracker, and a red token bag. I always like the little extra bits like that. I wonder. So there's going to be some bookkeeping achievements, right? Is that like you accomplish your battle tactic, or
I mean, a lot of people have done those, like
yeah,
laser cut MDF, you know, game trackers that track
or even
like
the acrylic ones?
how
Yeah,
many victory points you got for your battle round if you accomplished your primary or secondary or whatever missions. You know, how many VPs you got, how many CPs, command points you've got left, and things like that.
yeah.
Maybe it's something like that. You know, one of those boards that helps you track um, the goings on of the battle.
I know when they do those special edition versions of the game, um, the tokens are usually really nice. They're usually like metal, like have some
Mhm.
to them, you know, so they'll last you a long time. I'm for it. It's just the price for those versions of it are always outrageous, like
Yeah.
unjustifiably, like double the price of the regular thing. So I don't know, but we'll see. They only described it. They didn't show us anything yet. But I have to imagine as we clear now the launch of 40K 11th, or sort of the Armageddon pre-launch, um, we'll start seeing more for this. Um, for
Do you
the
think? Because I mean, obviously, orcs have more stuff coming. Um,
right.
they're not gonna be left with there. We know bikes are coming, right? They kind of cheekily showed off the bikes already. There's more coming for orcs outside of that. But do you think Space Marines is going to be getting more too, besides just non-push fit versions of these? Like, do you
That's a
think there are new units coming outside of the core
that
box?
that's a good question. Because so first of all, a surprisingly tight-lipped set of rumors as it pertains to these armies once they're released on their own. We heard about orcs getting some more stuff, but really don't have that many specifics yet. We've heard everything from new knobs to new mega knobs to um, some. Well, we know about the new bikers. Um, that they showed us off in a fun way with the terrain when they had to show the pre-painted terrain off after that leak
Mhm.
somewhere. Um, and that's Games Workshop's way of being like cheeky on top. It's like, well, okay, something of ours leaked, so let's. They called the two guys into the office like that day because within an hour a video goes up, and they shoot that quick thing where it's like, oh, let's set up a game. You have this pre-painted terrain, and then they show you in the background something we haven't seen yet, which was fully painted orc war bikers, um, which they then talked about later on the site. So I like that they did that. They showed up a leak with a preview of their own, um, but we haven't seen anything else. I don't know what else orcs are getting outside of some of the stuff being sold on its own, but they'd have to. And same with Space Marines. I mean, every edition it does that. It's like these armies, the starter box isn't it. They get, but yeah, I don't know exactly what's coming. I don't. I've heard there's possibilities of more types of eradicators. Um, I've heard a multi-part outrider kit
Mhm.
that makes different bike variations because now they're going to have different weapons on them. They're going like all in on the outriders being a thing. I don't know if that means they're getting a character on a bike at all. Do we have a captain on an outrider style bike? We have a chaplain.
We only have a chaplain. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't
So
know if
maybe a captain on a bike.
I mean,
That'd be
because Space
nice.
Marines are the one faction where every character that exists gets every armor pattern, every vehicle type, every weapon type, or whatever. Uh, I don't know. That it's like kind of annoying if you're not a Space Marine player that they always get all that. But if they get one, good for them. We've also heard rumors of either updates to or new versions of Space Marine tanks. Um,
Right. I forgot about that. Yep. So Land
Everything
Raider
from like the
plus
Rhino to
Rhino plus everything on the Rhino chassis. Yeah. It would be interesting. I did notice there were some interesting callouts from the new box with the leaders and the support characters and units they're able to join. I don't want to read too much into it because we aren't in the new edition yet, and
Mhm.
I could foresee something like first founding Marines, or not first founding, the first wave Marines, going the way of legends all the way. And so we lose our tacticals, we lose our devastators, we lose, kind of those guys who were specifically old Marines. But some of the characters that were available, I think like the librarian, or maybe it's the banner, were able to join both devastators and tactical Marine squads. Called out, and those were separate from the intercessors and the assault intercessors and like all the other units. And so I think it might be the case that this is a 10th edition data sheet, not an 11th edition one. And so we may see some of those units going away, and then maybe replacements or new units added that they can also join. I don't want to read too much into it, but it's at least an interesting observation.
That is. And they did say one thing when they were starting to show the data cards for the stuff that comes in Armageddon. And they said, these are their Armageddon data sheets.
Right.
Like they may look different. There was something in italics down at the bottom that was like, the versions that come out later might be different. So yeah, you're right. I think this is effectively a 10th compatible version of them, because Armageddon is technically out in this edition, so to speak, even though there's a new core rulebook, right? So I think until the core rulebook is sold separately to everybody, they maybe just, this is like, yeah, we're in this weird 10th transition phase. And so these cards are meant to be played more with 10th. So that could be. And it could be that they do Legends them all. And then when the Codex comes around in 90 days or whenever they're going to do it this time, yeah, all the old Marines maybe are just gone. But
there really aren't that many left.
No.
Like they really aren't. Like I said, it's tactical and devastators. Beyond that, it's like there's not a lot of old Marine specific units. Like scouts have all gotten an update. All the Terminators, all the Vanguards, the Stern Guards, the Assault Marines, they've all kind of been updated. Like, what else is there besides these couple of units that just need to maybe finally go?
And so they might do the same with some vehicles, like this land speeder that they made, which was a long overdue update. It is scaled a little bit bigger than the old one to look more appropriate to carry around 2,000-pound Marines or whatever. But so they might do that too. We might just get a couple of things ported to current size. Like we might get a slightly bigger Rhino. I don't know whether that means they'll send a bunch of stuff to Legends. Like, will everything on that Rhino chassis get updated, or will they only bring forward a couple of things and then send the rest of them?
Right. How awkward would that be? The Rhino gets updated, but the Predator is kept on the old chassis, the old size chassis. It's like, well, that would be odd. The Rhino is bigger than this. Why is this other Rhino so small?
Right.
I don't know. Because you'd have to, right? If you updated that, you'd have to update everything attached to it. And while they've already legended a bunch of it already, to get rid of it, you still have the Predator, you still have the Razorback,
the Whirlwind, the Vindicator.
The Whirlwind, yeah.
Yeah.
The Vindicator, the Demolisher.
Right. That's the one that's the Demolisher cannon, yeah.
Now, the ones they got rid of were the Hunter and the Stalker. Those are the anti-air ones. Right?
Yep.
The missile, Hunter Killer Missile, and then like the
like gun battery ones.
Yeah. Okay. So those two are gone. But there's still a handful of other ones in addition to the Rhino specific, transport. That would be interesting. I don't know. Like drop pod got updated. Yeah, like there's not much.
The drop pod was updated in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Remember that? Like now it's in a static position. It's always open.
It's also not a vehicle anymore. It's a terrain piece. Right? So it interacts with the battlefield slightly differently. So, also very interesting.
I don't know if I ever liked that as a playable model. So like Space Marine drop pods have existed in the lore forever. And people used to have to scratch build them. Forge World eventually made some, and people would bring it for like their display boards. But as a playable piece, it was always awkward because it was either an edition where you could get it for free because Marines had a thing, or it cost points. But but it's like it would land, and then it had modes where you could play with the doors closed or the doors open. But then when the doors were open, because the model's on a base, it had this weird thing where you couldn't walk within an inch of it or something.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah, it was implemented very poorly.
yeah.
Now, when it was when it was Deep Strike made you scatter and it could mishap, I think it was less egregious. But when it became like you get to place this wherever you want to, and you could like now all of a sudden tactically place it to block pathways because you can't come in range of it, like that's when it got bad. This current version of it maybe a little bit better. Because again, it's not part of your army, it doesn't get objectives, it doesn't do certain things anymore. There's no alternate, positionings for it. It's just it is what it is.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's better. Still weird.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's like most other units in other armies don't get access to anything close to it. They just have rules like, oh, you could deep strike. Oh, you got like flappy wings on you. You could just be set up wherever you want to. These Marines need to ride in a one-time use rocket pod to do basically the same thing. You could just rules wise say, oh, these Marines are in a drop pod. It gives them deep strike as an upgrade, 15-point upgrade. Now they can deep strike. You just set them up wherever, and it's like these guys came in a drop pod.
Right.
You don't need to put a drop pod on the table. Like
it was like when Games Workshop entered this phase where they realized they could make anything with their plastic now. So they decided to make everything with their plastic now. It was like, well, we can make planes now, and we can make drop pods, and we can make tyrannocytes or whatever they used to call them, or we can make. And so now they decided to make them. Now you're stuck with them. And rules wise, they've always been awkward. I think they look silly when they're sitting there on the board and they never can move. Planes I've had a problem with, though. It sounds like the rules for how the flyers work are going to change a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read much into that. But
it sounds like they're only on the board every other turn because they have to either come in, they either have to be in reserve and come in as strategic reserves, or they have to go into reserves. They have no more like movement characteristic.
Right.
They're flying so fast, and we've talked about this. Go quote us. 2 years ago, they are flying so fast over the battlefield that they are like not interactable with the battlefield essentially. Right? You're there for just a very brief window when you're doing a strafing run or like, just buzzing by the battlefield, dropping a bomb or dropping some missiles, whatever. And it's like, why do they have actual movement characteristics where you bring them in the corner and then they can kind of pivot and fly and stay in the board for another turn, but then they have to go off or something? It was just, It was awkward. So now it sounds like they come onto the battlefield, they do their shooting or whatever, and then the next turn they fly off. They can't stay on the battlefield because they're going too quickly. Now, that has panicked some people because some planes and transports and things like that are expensive and have supersonic. So people are worried that like, oh, well, now these transports, they can only come in onto the board. And they're also making these assumptions that these strategic reserves kind of, what do they call it? Ingress moves can only be within 6 inches of a battlefield edge. Well, nothing's saying that like a supersonic plane, when it ingresses, has to be 6 inches from a battlefield edge.
Right.
Or that something like a Storm Raven can't just stop being supersonic and hover and stay on the battlefield.
Yeah, we don't know enough yet.
Drop ships do, right? Drop ships do that. It's like, ooh, drop ship flies in, it stops and lands. Think of a helicopter.
Right.
A helicopter can fly very quickly, but they don't have to stay flying very quickly. They can fly up and land, drop off their guys, take off, and slowly, So I think instead of panicking about, how useless some things are now without having a full picture, we just need to wait.
Yeah. I think Games Workshop is somewhat acknowledging too that they put themselves in this spot by making all these things, and they've had such wildly different rules over the years. But now they're stuck with them. Now I don't know how long it's been since we've seen a new plastic plane in 40K be made. Maybe the AdMech one, like in 8th or
Archaeocopter.
Right.
That
Whatever.
the
It
one?
looks like the MASH helicopter. Like, yeah.
It looks like a Da Vinci invention, right? It's got those like
Yep.
canvas wings,
Yeah. And the big
you know?
bubble front.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
that kind of
it's
thing.
cool and all, but I that was like one of the last ones I think that they did. And it's, I think they know they're in a weird spot with stuff like that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, now everybody's bought these $100 models and they don't, and they don't want to just say, no, you can't play them. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's the same thing with the Imperial Knights. I think that's why
Yeah.
they're trying to scale them down, right? They came out with like the Armigers, and they came out with a mid-size, full-size Imperial Knight that's smaller than the one of
And the
the Crusade
Crusader class.
chassis
Yeah.
or whatever. I think they're trying to scale things down and scale them back, and like he's out of the bottle already. Like
Yep.
you made things too large.
Yep.
There's no
You
undoing
made
it.
them large and you started making stuff that didn't really need model representation in terms of
Mhm.
gameplay. That I felt that way as a Tyranid player about the Tyrannocyte, just like the drop pod. It was like, well, once it comes down, it doesn't do much. Its guns are really bad. But couldn't you have just had me pay points to have a Tyranid unit that couldn't deep strike, now deep strike, and just call it that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I, I don't know. And maybe it could do a shooting attack when it lands, but that would be like how the old orbital bombardment used to work. You didn't
Mhm.
have a model to do it. So
You had to go and buy a spaceship that was orbiting the planet,
yeah,
and have it sit on the table next to your battlefield so that you could use the orbital bombardment stratagem, and it would be coming from that ship. You had to paint
right.
it. You had to have it fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And so yeah, like I said, I just think they're stuck with some of these things and they're trying to make a solution.
Mhm.
I think it's why a lot of planes weren't even very good in recent. When you look at a lot of the lists performing well, you just don't even see planes in them most of the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think they can't get rid of them, but they don't want them to be a staple.
They make them so bad for so long that people like don't want to have them anymore. And then when they finally get rid of them from the game, people are like, "Yeah, they weren't any good anyway."
Hopefully, because
Yeah.
usually it's like when something's no good for so long, or a model's 25 years old, Games Workshop has at that spot where they're like, well, we either have to make a new one and or make the rules better or scrap it. And people know this, but they still, once it's scrapped, once that's the decision, they're just like, what? I played with these every day, all the time. Then they blow the dust
Yeah.
off of it. But yeah, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of the planes in the game or the drop pod style stuff. I wish they weren't there, but I understand
When
why they're
the
not in
when
that
the
one.
battlefield was bigger, they made more sense. But they've even shrunk the battlefield.
Yeah.
Now we're on a 60 by 44, and it's just there's no room, right? There's no room for big things
Well, and
anymore.
they're all on huge bases. I mean, they're all
Yeah.
on these great big ovals that you have to, that don't interact with stuff, but do. So I don't know. It sounds like they're trying to clean that up so that they really aren't a model that's on the. So, I mean, how does stuff kill it? Is it that one turn when it pops on, you can do it, but then is that a waste of your firepower to kill a plane?
It's leaving at the end of the turn anyway. Why
Right.
bother shooting at it?
You
Yeah.
might just have to think in terms of playing plane turn, not plane turn, and like go from there as a strategy. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have the full picture soon. The game's coming. Like you said, the boxes are getting in people's hands now. We're going to see all these content creators start. The NDA has been lifted because pre-order was announced. So
Yep.
you're going to see people
All
showing
that.
off rules and paint jobs and whatever. But speaking of new releases, I also saw in that Warhammer store today, the Cog Fort
Mhm.
is on shelves now. They've sold well from what I've heard. We haven't seen any numbers yet, but we talked about this when they first previewed the thing. Not only leaning into Cities of Sigmar as the human faction was not only a brilliant move by Games Workshop and really has drawn a lot of people to the game. I think Cities of Sigmar is one that people really like now that they fleshed out the roster a bit. But the Cog Fort, making it this unit that's playable by literally every army and has so much conversion potential to even be used in other games that, like, I know it's a $210 US dollar kit, but I still feel like it's going to sell like crazy because most people only ever need to own one. So, like,
Mhm.
I think it's brilliant. Did you get one yet?
I haven't gotten mine yet. It should be on its way.
Okay.
I don't know where it is. I have to check on that. But yeah, no, like I said, I had plans, all kinds of plans to make stand-ins and custom ones, and I think the actual base Cog Fort kit, I think I'd want two of, because I'd want to make one from Age of Sigmar specifically, but have another one be a Skaven one. And I think the Skaven one would still use the bones of that kit to make the Skaven version. But every other army I can think of where they would want one, I think I would do something very different. I wouldn't even need to use the core parts of the Cog Fort for it. Like anything from like a war mammoth being a Cog Fort to, a giant hermit crab, or I was thinking about doing for like Soulblight Gravelords and having it be like a giant, like animated undead creature as the bottom, kind of crawling with like a tomb on its back. Like a
and that
crypt,
that echoes the theme that they've done aesthetically with zombies recently in Age of Sigmar, where some of them are literally crawled out with their gravestone on their back, and they're now just
And so I was thinking of like a big version of that, and then you open the catacombs.
Imagine that an undead Gargant essentially, with a great big
crawling,
yeah.
And then the ranged attack is like, think of like I don't know, like Witchfire, or maybe even like a ghost bombardment, right? Like the cannon or whatever, or like the flamethrower that is supposed to be on top is just like a stream of ghosts or something, just something like that. Something very thematic, but it just needs to be the same size and make sense in terms of like, oh yeah, it can transport stuff in there,
right?
That sort of thing. So yeah. I think I'm gonna need to get a second one after I get this first one. Fully built, just bog standard,
I didn't think I was gonna get one, but now I do kind of want one. And I'm gonna see with the first one at least if it's magnetizable. And if it is, that gives me a lot of flexibility, because if you've got multiple armies, you might have a different version that's useful.
I think I saw that the roof and the weapon on top are magnetizable. So between the flamer and the cannon, that you can switch those, or at least hide the joins, right? If the lid comes off, you can you don't need to paint and hobby the inside of that cockpit, basically, or the turret parapet. You just hide all that and just swap out the gun. But you'd also need to worry about the portcullis in the front being there or not. I don't know how. I don't think that's magnetizable.
Okay.
But you magnetize the portcullis shut versus open with a boarding ramp or something, and there's your difference, right? Like this one has a capacity with guys getting out because it's got a boarding ramp. This one has a portcullis that's shut because that's just the entrance. Guys don't come out of there during battle. That's your cannon one. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think you could pretty easily come up with a way to make both of them swappable. Because technically, I guess there's like 4 versions of them, but different mercenary ones. But like, there's the transport, and then there's the cannon. Like that's the 2 big ones.
This is a little thing that I don't know if it matters much, but a part of me does hope that it will be its most effective when it's in a Cities of Sigmar army. I would like if that's the case, like if it feels mostly like theirs, even though that's not currently my army. But I do like that they're coming up with ways for everybody to play one, because
I think the Cities of Sigmar ones definitely get different rules.
Yeah.
Than the mercenary ones. The mercenary ones are basically like you get a thing, right? Like you either pass out an order or you give bonus damage to the unit charging out of it. Like that's the 2 things you get. Whereas like in the Cities of Sigmar, they do a little bit more. So I think you're already kind of there. They're there with that already. And then I assume it can receive orders and receive benefits from being ordered, that kind of stuff too. So I don't think there's anything to worry about.
I've heard I haven't decided what I'll do with mine if and when I get it, but that is one of the coolest aspects of it. Is it's not only now playable by everybody, but the hobbyist can just go nuts with this thing. A lot of people I've heard someone when I was doing a paint night at a store last week, and they were talking about, oh, I bet someone's going to enter that in Golden Demon. It's like, I don't know about that. I don't know about a castle looking piece being a Golden Demon entry, but unless it's a part of a larger scene, you know, that really puts 800 hours in or whatever. But I just think hobbyists in general, we're going to see people do so many fun things with that kit. Can't say enough about it. I really think it's a model of the year type thing, even if there's better looking stuff that comes out. It's just one of those that's going to be such an important kit for Games Workshop, hopefully. The timing of its release being so close to Armageddon might hurt some people's wallets and make which way they want to go. Oop, did I lose you?
Yeah, because how to make big decisions about where you want to allocate your hundreds of dollars is kind of a problem. You know?
Yeah, because those two aren't priced that far apart, really. So, but as far as rumors, because Age of Sigmar is always where we're excited and looking at news. I haven't much. It's been more stuff about ogres and dwarves, really. Though someone has claimed to have seen some sort of bull centaur. If that's true, like an expansion to Hellsmiths of Hashit, maybe.
A bull centaur, huh? I mean, Hellsmiths already has the bull centaur units.
Right, they're talking about a character. Right.
Okay. I mean, that would be fine, right? Sort of that half of the army could use a little bit more support. We're flushing out, I think.
Yeah. But I don't know if their time's coming soon, you know, like
yeah.
Maybe early in the new edition they'll have an expansion to their list already. I think it's a popular army. I think it's sold well. It hasn't been overperforming in terms of what we've seen. No, and not just tournament wins and stuff like that. It hasn't been overperforming that way. But even the numbers, like the number of players represented at events, it's not overperforming. But the models have sold well. People like how they look. And so, I don't know. I think that's an army they'll expand on. And if they're doing this Kazalit Holds thing and it's going to be a big part of the next edition, might as well expand their enemies, I guess.
Yeah. I actually just went while you were talking and looked up something about rumors. Because I was curious if anything popped up rumor-wise again officially. I did find a post from a few days ago teasing the big fatty summer preview, which like we were talking about.
Okay.
And what could that could possibly mean? What's big fatty preview mean? Obviously, ogres was on people's minds, and I wanted to rehash what they were talking about the ogres getting and what was potentially going away again, kind of as confirmed by a rehashing of the rumor. 3 unique heroes apparently. That we said that right? It was 3 named characters. A unique tyrant, which was the monster one, the female tyrant on a big monster. Daughter of Glob Glittermaw. Apparently, there's some names associated with it now. A unique butcher model that'll be on a war machine, maybe a chariot of some kind, and then a unique man eater, a female man eater war master.
Okay.
No idea. New hunters that will replace the lead belchers as their ranged unit. A new unit of Mournfangs, which I wasn't sure that the current Mournfang unit needed to be updated, but if they're changing aesthetics, getting away from like the ice pelt kind of Mongolian Fu Manchu ogres, that unit would need to go, right? As well as all the infantry. The Iron Guts and the Gluttons both share that aesthetic as well. They would kind of need to be updated and refreshed to a new look, which those are rumored. And then a new Butcher and a new Tyrant. So we did lose the 2019 Tyrant, which wasn't that long ago. New plastic model. The Maulpot, Lead Belchers, Yetis, which are fine cast. Firebelly, fine cast. Frost Sabers, fine cast. Icebrow Hunter, fine cast. So all of that stuff obvious why it's going. Did you know ogres also they still had the Noblars in their army? You remember that
What?
they could still bring 20-man units of goblins? I
Right.
had forgotten about that too. They're gone. So,
Oh no.
which I think is really funny. And then there was a new tidbit about more fatty things regarding the beast claws. They scoffed at these events, deeming the lot utterly mad. Mounted upon new monsters, they simply pursued their grim hunts, tracking the Skaven beneath frigid gales. Like that was really weird and cryptic. Like, what does that mean? I don't know.
I don't know.
Does that mean that beast claws are not going to be included in this version of ogres, and they'll get updated to something else later? That would be weird. I don't know.
It's tough to say. The rumors on Age of Sigmar in general are so weird and have been ever
Right.
since the last world stuff started that it's been hard to guess what it means, or if any of it is if any of it's not even for Age of Sigmar proper. I mean, it could be,
Mhm.
but yeah, I haven't seen anything concrete in a while. It's a little annoying because I crave getting the good stuff, but it's been hard to believe anything, and then I mean, I guess you could guess with that many factions, but so that latest list for Ogre Maw tribes in particular sounds like there's more Band-Aid rips.
Yeah.
Also, lots of new things. I like the idea of them getting named characters, though. That's long overdue. I think every faction in the games should have named characters, should have these heroes and villains that everybody knows. And ogres oddly had 0 of them.
Yeah.
Now, as far as we know,
Very
they don't
interesting.
live super lengthy lives like elves or dwarves or immortals or anything, right?
Not that I know of. I mean, like most things are just mortal, right? They have normal ass lives, you know. So,
Yeah. I mean,
I
there'd
mean
be no
that's
way
why
for like Greasus or Skrarg or somebody to still be alive, right? Like,
I
so
don't think so. Same thing with like Grimgore. Like, why? How could Grimgore possibly join the setting? Like, it just wouldn't happen, right?
and
The
they've
only
already
things that make more sense are like the godlike beings, and like unless a named character like that becomes some aspect of magic in some way,
right.
then maybe I don't know. It'd be really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I hope they're all new and give us some lore for them and make them cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't we already have like the functional Grimgore in Age of Sigmar? Isn't that what like Mordrak or whatever his name is supposed to be?
I mean, Gordrak is
Or Gordrak, yeah.
is the voice of Gork. Kind of. Yeah, he's kind of like no one's going to be as badass of a Black Orc as Grimgor was, but I think he was supposed to be spiritually a successor character to him. I mean, they've kind of also teased just through other event exclusive models and like unique sculpts for Black Orc big bosses and stuff that they've released. More models that were like Grimgor, more models that were more Grimgor like than Gordrak was. Like I don't remember what the model was called, but there was one where it's like there's a boss like holding the severed head of a rat ogre or something. You remember that one?
Okay, sure.
And he's like holding up an axe and he's holding a head, very similar to how Grimgor did in his model, where he's holding a head and he's got his axe up there. It's just like, okay, I know what you were going for here. Like it's not subtle. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think they really like the idea of Ironjawz being very Grimgor, but there is no like named character that is him yet, in my opinion. So
Yeah. It's okay to have new stuff though. So all right, other than that, we don't know much. But when you put enough thought into it, like I'm wondering if the ingredients are coming together to form a recipe that gives us a hint into what 5th edition Age of Sigmar will taste like.
for sure. Yeah, I'm always excited to taste new things, and you know, the next edition is no exception. So I'd like to see. I'm all aboard for changing things up and making things a little bit different. I don't want a complete rework. I don't want to reinvent a recipe that works in any way. But
Yeah.
But speaking of that, I've got some go-to recipes that I wouldn't mind whipping up.
Yeah,
I'm getting
whipping up a
hungry.
quick. Yeah, all right, let's do that. Let's whip one up.
Yeah, let's eat.